Mr. Mercer, would you please read the statement to bring us back into open session?
Yes, Chair Swigert, I move that the record shows that the only items discussed in the closed meeting were those specifically cited in the motion to convene into the closed meeting and those lawfully exempted from statutory meeting requirements.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Mercer, seconded by Ms. Scott. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Dr. Smith.
Motion carries with all board members present voting yes.
Dr. Cotton, do you have items resulting from closed session?
Yes, Madam Chair. The first one is a student matter. I recommend that student number 1 be expelled as discussed.
I'll entertain a motion for approval. Moved by Ms. Scott. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. McCormick. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Dr. Smith.
Motion carries with all board members present voting yes.
Dr. Cotton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The following administrative appointments are submitted for board approval. Dr. V. Marie Finnegan Copen, Literacy Specialist, Virginia Beach City Public Schools, to Supervisor of English Language Arts, School Administration Building. Dr. Coretta A. Page, Dean of Students, Suffolk Public Schools, to Assistant Principal, Deep Creek Middle School. And then I have a candidate I'll mention after the board decides on those two.
I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mercer. Is there a second? Seconded by Dr. Walker. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Dr. Smith.
Motion carries with all board members present voting yes.
Dr. Cotton, do you have any additional announcements?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I have an Assistant Principal 1, Mrs. Kristen M. Key, teacher at Deep Creek High School, to Assistant Principal 1 at Great Bridge High School. It will not require board approval this evening, but I want to make sure everyone was aware of this appointment, and thank you. That completes my announcements.
Thank you. We will now move on to the invocation and pledge of allegiance to the flag. At this time, we will observe a moment of silence. Afterward, I'll ask Vice Chair Mercer to lead us in the pledge. Please stand as you are able. There being no awards and recognitions this evening, we will now move on to the hearing of citizens. During their allotted time, speakers should observe our rules of decorum and know that expressions of concerns and criticism on matters of school policy and operations is welcome. While the speaker's own comments are welcome, they may not play pre-recorded messages. Dr. Smith, are there any citizens who have requested time to speak this evening?
Yes, Chair Swigert, we have one citizen that has requested to speak.
I want to thank those speakers who have signed up to address the board this evening. There are two ways that citizens can request time to speak at the meeting. They can either call the clerk's office before 12 noon the day of the meeting or sign up to speak prior to the start of the meeting. All in-person requests to speak must be submitted to the deputy clerk at least 5 minutes prior to the published meeting start time. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. Once your allotted time is over, we ask that you promptly exit the podium. You may choose to sit in the boardroom if seats are available, but standing or sitting on the floor will not be permitted, and you may not block the exit doors. We would also like to ask that you refrain from any behavior that disrupts the meeting, including the use of profanity, applause, cheering, or jeering. Dr. Smith, please call the first speaker.
Speaker number 1, it's your turn at the podium.
Vic Nichols, Chesapeake. In 2023, Norway had over 50% excess deaths among young people aged 1 to 39 years old. There was a 32% increase in cardiovascular deaths, a 51% increase deaths from disease, and 36% excess deaths from all causes. The dominating factor among the deaths from diseases were things were like other symptoms and undefined conditions, and in other words, things they didn't have answers for. Well, we've seen excess deaths before in Europe. 2021, Portugal had the highest COVID vaccination rate in the entire world. Early 2024, they had the highest number of excess deaths in Europe. Week 49 of 2022, there were 43.3% more deaths among children aged 0 to 14 in Europe, compared with that number during 2020 to mid-2021. In 2022, there were over 400,000 excess deaths in Europe altogether. This was after everybody got the safe and effective mRNA injections. You know, if they were supposed to prevent anything, then they should have prevented that. A South Korea study looked at a sample of 558,000, 17,000 people with 38,387 unvaccinated. Those who got the shots were 23% more likely to have Alzheimer's and 138% higher risk of mild cognitive impairment. Preliminary evidence suggests a potential link between COVID-19 vaccination, particularly the mRNA vaccines, and increased incidences of Alzheimer's and mild cognitive impairment. My concern is, I've said this for several years, that there were problems, and yet our boards of health who advised the school board itself, how have they changed? They recommended us to do everything a political ideology said, but not what the facts said. That's very, very scary. Thank you.
This concludes our speakers for this evening.
Thank you for sharing your comments. Our practice is to receive information. However, we do not usually engage in dialogue, and that is our intent tonight. If appropriate and not already provided, someone from the superintendent staff will evaluate your concern and provide a response. We will now move on to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mercer. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Scott. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Dr. Smith.
Motion carries with all board members present voting yes.
We are now moving on to the information agenda. The first item is the Family and Community Engagement Update. Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Chair Swigert. Tonight, we will provide an update on the work completed by our Family and Community Engagement team. I would like to welcome our Director of Engagement, Mrs. Andrea Vale, who will provide an overview of this important work.
Good evening, Chair Swigert, Vice Chair Mercer, members of the board, Dr. Cotton, and staff. It is my pleasure to highlight the work of the Family and Community Engagement team over the past year. First, I would like to introduce our dedicated team sitting behind me. April Darnell, Lisa Carey, Laura Lerf, Anna Medina, and Heather Boyer, our administrative assistant. Family engagement means schools, families, and communities working together to help students achieve their potential. This is the underlying theme of all the work that we do. This year, the FACE team launched Peak Parent University. It is a course catalog listing all of our in-person events, webinars, and resources. Through Peak Parent University, you can register for events and find links to recordings from previous webinars in one convenient spot. We also hosted 35 events and saw nearly 6,000 registrations. Our webinars have received 1,231 views on the Chesapeake Public Schools YouTube channel, and that number is increasing daily. Our webinars allow attendees to ask questions live and allow us to partner with CPS and outside agencies to distribute information that will benefit our families. Here, you can see a list of our highlighted events on the screen. We were excited to offer our families a variety of topics this school year. Many of the topics that we cover during a given year come directly from the recommendations of our Chesapeake families. Another effort that we are proud of is being able to support our military families. We host our yearly Operation Military Families event, as well as provide support to our military family life counselors that are housed at 27 of our schools. Our newly enrolled military families receive a military family folder that has a wealth of information related to the district and military-related resources. We are also excited to sustain 100% Purple Star schools and continue our partnership with NSA Hampton Roads. This year, we were able to open a family welcome and support center at Oscar Smith Middle School to support our English language learner families. At the Welcome Center, we enrolled over 150 families and provided any necessary support and resources. Additionally, we assisted school personnel in communicating with families regarding attendance concern, the special education eligibility process, and family meetings involving administrators and school counselors. Our community outreach efforts have also been robust. We have partnered with Chesapeake Thrives and hosted several Chesapeake Thrive shows to inform parents about special events within our district. We chaired the School Age Supports Thrives group, which shares resources for families across Chesapeake, and participated in the Thrives Resource Fair, allowing collaboration among agencies and nonprofits throughout the city. We have also joined efforts with our business and community partners in various initiatives. We pivoted locations for the JCA Kids Cruise event to ensure greater safety for all. We collaborated with Baker's Crust and Philly-style steaks and subs to provide incentives for students based on academics and attendance. We assisted the We Care Resource Center and student enrollment with enrollment and community support for McKinney-Vento families. We partnered with 4Kids to provide transportation services and housing deposits for families. We provided financial literacy for both students and parents with Navy Federal Credit Union. And we also hosted our annual Get on the Bus event. And this year we are planning an expanded event at the Chesapeake Conference Center to be more inclusive of all of our schools. We partner with Enrollment and Student Services as well as the Chesapeake Health Department and Chesapeake Regional to get additional nursing staff for physicals. And we're also going to be able, through our Title I office, to provide transportation for our families that may not be able to get to the conference center. In support of our parents, we have implemented programs such as Parent Cafe. We partnered with CHIP to establish parent cafes. We are pleased to announce that next year we will implement our own cafes in both English and Spanish for the 24-25 school year. Cafes are research-based, proven models that provide small group conversations that involve talking and listening on topics that matter to parents, space for parents to provide and receive support for appropriate developmental parental guidance. We supported our families of students with special needs by hosting 4 webinars that focus on topics that pertain to their experiences in Chesapeake Public Schools and resources for the future. We also provided 3 SIB shops, which is a national program to support siblings of students with disabilities. And finally, the FACE team, along with the Chesapeake Public Schools Educational Foundation, is happy to announce that every school in Chesapeake now has a care space or care closet. We are proud to be a part of this endeavor to make sure that our students have the school supplies and hygiene products that they may need. So heading into next school year, we will continue to foster a supportive, inclusive, and thriving school community where every student, family, and staff member feels valued, engaged, and empowered. Additionally, we will aim to create an environment that embraces diversity, promotes excellence, and cultivates meaningful partnerships with stakeholders in the broader community. I truly appreciate your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Scott?
Thanks. By the way, you look very lovely tonight, Miss Vale.
Thank you, Ms. Scott.
I don't have a question. I just had some comments for the FACE team in general. I just want to say I appreciate all the work that you're doing. I've attended to many events that you guys have hosted. You genuinely love your jobs. You're genuinely invested in the families of Chesapeake. It shows. It shows on your face as soon as we walk in the doors, and I'm just so greatly appreciative of all of you. So just keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you for
awesome.
all of you attending so many of our events.
Well, I was going to say something of that nature, but that pretty much summed it up and covered it well, so I agree. Great job, ladies, and we appreciate everything you do. There are so often those outside forces that are impacting families that distract from the educational day, and you guys are really taking a lot of your time and effort to make sure that these kids can focus where they belong, which is on their education, and taking those outside influences that can sometimes be negative or just not constructive. So it's very, very valuable, and we appreciate everything you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
So next on our information agenda is the proposed revisions to school board policies and regulations. Over to you, Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Chair Swigert. We have several recommended policy revisions to share with you again tonight, and I'm happy to bring back our Director of Planning, Policy, and Research, Mrs. Fallon Graham. She's been working diligently with the Superintendent's Cabinet to prepare these drafts for your consideration, and at this time, Mrs. Graham will present an overview of the proposed revisions.
Good evening, Chair Swigert, Vice Chair Mercer, and members of the board. The items you see listed here are being presented today with proposed revisions. We're presenting these proposed revisions to our policies based on a comprehensive review. Our goal is to ensure that our practices align with these policies and that our policies are responsive to the evolving needs of the district. Revisions to Policy 318 include the addition of clarification for the authority of the superintendent in managing schools and the superintendent's role in hiring all staff, as well as notifying the board of any related employment activity. Revisions to Policy 320 come from a change to the unified pay scale. This change clarifies which positions will be appointed by the board upon the recommendation of the superintendent. Changes to Policy 814 include the removal of the reference to Section 22.1-309 of the Code of Virginia for the reason the superintendent would recommend the suspension or dismissal of an employee. Revisions to Policy 840 come from our change to the unified pay scale. Revisions to Policy 851 include a new section about leaves without pay, when they may be granted, the number of days permitted, and what occurs when the limit is exceeded. Revisions to Policy 852 removes language that establishes differences in sick leave between licensed personnel and classified personnel. This policy would apply in the same way to all of our employees. Revisions to Policy 860 include additional information regarding requests for bereavement leave. Requests must be made within 5 days of the date of death, and verification may be required for approval. New Policy 919 is about our Student ID Badge program. It includes requirements for students in each school related to the ID badge dissemination and use. The policies listed on this slide come from changes to the unified pay scale. The changes include replacing the former administrative pay scale with the appropriate pay scale. I'd like to bring to your attention that revisions were made to the regulations listed on this slide. Regulation 806 on personnel records management and 919 on the student ID badges are new. Regulation 858 has been revised to align with our steps that we're taking to decrease our use of paper. As you're aware, regulations do not require action from the board, but they are provided in board docs for your reference. Before I conclude, I'd also like to bring to your attention that these policies will be brought forward during our next meeting on the consent agenda. Do you have any questions?
I don't believe I see any questions at this time, Ms. Graham, so thank you.
Thanks.
We are now moving on to the action agenda, and the item for tonight is the Legislative Advocacy Conference. Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Chair Swigert. I would like to share an opportunity with the board. The Virginia School Boards Association is having its Legislative Advocacy Conference in September at the Career and Technical Center in Chesterfield, Virginia. If any board member wishes to attend this conference, would you please raise your hand? Seeing none, this concludes my item.
Thank you. We will now move on to the Superintendent's report. Over to you, Dr. Cotton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick announcement in case you weren't aware. The System Administrator Appreciation Day is Friday, July 26, 2024. We hope everyone will take a few minutes on this day to say thank you to the IT staff in your life who work tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure your network is secure, your computer is up and running, and your printer is jam-free. So enjoy your day. We appreciate our IT staff here in Chesapeake Public Schools. Also want to remind the public and all of us here that our next meeting is scheduled for August 12th, 2024. We are planning to hold this meeting in the new administration building located at 1421 Christina Way in the Greenbrier section of the city. So don't come here on that day because we won't be here. We'll be at the new building. So this is officially our last school board meeting in this building, and it may be our shortest as we move forward. But anyway, I just wanted to share those couple of announcements with you here this evening. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Last on our agenda this evening is board member items. Does any board member have an item to bring before the group? Ms. Scott?
Sorry, this is a record-breaking short meeting, and I'm going to try to keep this just as short. This is so exciting. No, I actually already gave this young man a shout-out on social media, but I wanted to do it tonight at the board meeting as well. I had the opportunity, a privilege really, to have one of our students from Deep Creek High School Science and Medicine Academy shadow me for about 20 hours this summer. That's a requirement for them. And this is a young gentleman. He's a 17-year-old rising senior, and he chose to do his mentorship in obstetrics and gynecology, which is definitely a female-dominated healthcare field. And I was kind of curious to see how he was going to do, because in reproductive health we discuss sensitive topics. It's not just about babies. There's a lot of things that we talk about. And I was so impressed with his maturity and his respect for dignity. He had very thoughtful, relevant, and mature questions, and he really did an outstanding job. We had only 20 hours together, but he observed and participated in over 80 patient cases. And the very first patient that we saw, the baby was about 10 weeks gestational age. And he told me afterwards that he couldn't stop smiling as he was watching the screen. And that just touched my heart, because these are moments that you can talk about, but until you're in there and you get to see it for yourself, you really don't know what that's like. And we also got to see another, joyful moment for a baby that they had already been to the emergency room, and they were expecting to have bad news, but we were able to give good news. And so that was a moment that you just really can't put into words, but I know it was a very joyful thing that he got to be a part of. I'm really proud. His name is Brady Knox. Ladies, he has a girlfriend. That he's very committed to. He's a very handsome young man, but anyway, I'm just really proud of Brady. I think Brady is going to do great things. His goal is to be a trauma surgeon, and I actually think that he will achieve that goal. He's incredibly self-disciplined, has a very calm disposition, and I think he's going to do really good things. So anyway, good job, Brady. And I've already told the director for the Deep Creek Science and Medicine Academy that I'm happy to take other students from Chesapeake Public Schools. Thanks.
Seeing no other comments, I would like to add a quick happy birthday to board members at my right, Board Member Amanda Dean and Board Member Sam Boone, who will be celebrating later this month. We hope you both have a great birthday. And with that, we will call this meeting adjourned.